Hey, welcome to 23 Degrees Sideways, Coyote in the Highlands. I want to talk just a little bit more. We talked about cavemen a couple of times in the past week or two, or whatever, depending on how I put the videos up. And we've talked about hunting. We talked about caveman lifespan, and then we talked about caveman hunting. And I want to talk now a little bit about enlightenment and peace, that inner peace, these states of being that are good for us, good for our souls. And I don't generally go with the ancient technology and old days were better kind of mythologizing, you know. We had the peace, we had the perfect utopia in Atlantis, and then they tore it down, that kind of stuff. But maybe, this is just something to consider. Maybe that hunting mode, you know, of human history was where we actually got our notions of enlightenment to begin with. We know that we had religion. We know that we had spirituality of some sort. You know, there's temple complexes that are predate agriculture where people appear to have gathered and left, like nomadic or semi-nomadic. And we definitely communicated with each other. And there was plenty of genetic transference. And, you know, people try to explain that genetic transference away as you know, caveman go rob woman from other tribe. And I don't think... You know, this is another one of those biases that you think that the IQ is 80 just because you didn't live with the internet. And I'm like, that's not really how it works, you know. Minds are hungry for information and learning, and I think that not being flooded with it, people paid a lot more attention to their interactions, especially outside of their group. So, you know, all the evidence points to slavery being invented alongside settlement agriculture, permanent settlements and agriculture. You had to keep the people there because, you know, life is actually easier without that in most cases. And that's one of the things to look at, is life was easier as a nomad hunter than as a city agriculturalist. That's something key there. Religion changed around that time too and became very centered on the idea of these permanent communities and these rules and these hierarchies and the slavery and the caste systems. This is all developed out of agriculture. It doesn't develop pre-agriculture. And this is all a bunch of the negatives that sometimes we can't even see, and which we definitely are not escaping fast enough. So, what if the default state of caveman, the hunting caveman, is something approaching enlightenment? A type of peace, spiritual growth, capability, potential. And what if that actually has something to do with the body's health as well? I mean, obviously it does, because stress ages you and kills you. So having this lower stress environment, maybe that's a good thing, you know. Where, and again, I don't do the ancient ways worship thing so much, but where do our myths of this stuff come from? You know, the people who didn't go into the cities, who stayed up in the mountains and ate their squirrels, but who were relatively small in number, the hermit types, come down from the mountain wise man types. They're everywhere. Okay, and in India, for example, some cultures, India is just the easiest one for most Americans to grasp. There's still this idea that when you get done with your busy city life stage of life, and the kids are grown up, you go back to the forest. You go back to the simpler life, and you have your enlightenment stuff. You don't have to be 80 years old and still striving to make a buck. You know, this gets into retirement. We have a retirement problem in Western culture where people say, well, if I stop working, I'll die. Well, that's because you have nothing to do with your life besides work. Maybe there's some other stuff to expand and learn about, like, you know, souls and spirituality and how to relax. And this doesn't have to be a late phase of life thing. You can learn this stuff when you're 5. It sure makes the rest of life a lot easier, but possibly less power hungry. And that's a big problem in Western culture. Not being power hungry is generally seen as a pretty bad thing. So there's that. So what if this default state of enlightenment is something that we're slowly trying to get back to? You know, what if that is something you get in the better hunting cultures, nomadic cultures, pre-agriculture cultures? You know, people say hunter-gatherer, and then they assume again that you're spending 10 hours a day picking berries or digging up tubers. That's, you know, again, that's completely no. You don't have a need for that. That's the big deal there, is you don't have a need for that. So why would you do it if you don't have a need for it? You know, herbs, seasonings, treats, little things that go with it. Yeah, that's all real. But the reliance, the idea that it's 90% women gathering and 10% men hunting or something, that's silly. It's propaganda. Okay? So what if enlightenment, peace, inner peace and joy is a default state of the hunting cultures, the really prehistoric hunting cultures? Think about that. Just wow. How much have we messed up? How much of your birthright are you being robbed of? You know, you go look at some of the bushcraft people, some of the people who go out there and spend 6 months out in the woods or something with nothing but a knife and build a little thing that's going to rot in a couple of days because it's a wet woodland and stuff. Rot in a couple of years, you know, but you make a little temporary shelter and everything's cool for a season. What do you think that's like? What do you think it's like mentally? What do you think it's like for your soul? You know, it's a very peaceful and regenerative process, being one with the woods. So why do you think that cavemen didn't have that? Cavemen, because we call them cavemen. Why do you think that Neolithic nomadic cultures didn't have that? Why do you think they didn't have culture? That's another question. You know, stuff to think about. Enlightenment might be just escaping from the silly rat race. Duh. Of course, you can be enlightened and function in the rat race. That's just fine. You can, because it's a game at that point. It's not really a thing. But just take a look. You know, maybe the default state of humanity is something we're trying to get back to. Stay sideways.